All right, and welcome to today's episode of DB2, Week 6, almost in the books. We are going to talk injuries. We are going to talk waiver pickups. We are going to talk a couple of streaming options. So, got some good stuff in the hopper today. David Brem here with Daniel Butler as always. Butler, how'd Week 6 treat you?
Pretty well. I mean, won in all my money leagues, so that's good. But by the skin of our teeth, my wife and I would say it was really her league, but I kind of help, with any decisions. And Tyler Lockett needed one catch. Really just needed 5 yards, so a carry would have worked. And he waited till halfway through the third. So that was a little bit scary, which we'll talk about that in tomorrow's episode when we go through all the games. But Tyler Lockett, do we start him? I don't know. We're going to talk about that, see where he ranks in our, for rest of season as well as this upcoming week because we'll see. But outside of that, how'd your week go? Are you looking on the up and up right now?
I'm doing pretty good in like the main league I care about. It was close. I had the most points this week, and the guy I was playing had the second most. So it's always nice to be on that side of that
Oh yeah.
combination. So no worries there. It was nice because I had lost one or two in a row, so I was kind of falling down. So it was kind of nice. The Buccaneers helped me significantly in that game, so I'll thank them
Again,
for that.
we'll talk about all these games, everything in tomorrow's episode. But we
Yeah.
want to focus on injuries, waiver wire. We have a lot.
And thankfully, so much nicer than last
I was
week.
gonna say we have a lot to talk about, but not really, considering since last week was so terrible, especially for running backs. We did have one big running back go down this week, but last week was just brutal. Unfortunately, Kareem Hunt went down. But let's go ahead and we'll start with I think Kansas City and Washington. I think
Yeah, let's go. Yeah,
this is the game to start with. Miami, Jacksonville, no notable injuries. Cincinnati, Detroit, no notable injuries. So Kansas City at Washington. Washington did not look great in this game. I don't know if that was a because of Kansas City's or defense, or if it because Washington just didn't play well. But maybe a combination of both. But Antonio Gibson is dealing with this fracture, and it looks like he's trying to fight through it, but he might miss some time. So there's a couple names here. One, J.D. McKissick, a name that should be owned. I mean, he should be owned in every league.
should be for
Maybe
sure.
not, but if he's not, you pick him up. But that's a name that you should definitely. If he misses any time, even McKissick is still maybe a flex play. Like he's been really solid. But if you can't get McKissick, a name off the radar, Jaret Patterson. Now, you're not going to think about this name because he didn't really play at all. But this is the guy that seems like he would be in line to get the rushing. McKissick has been that third down sort of back. He never really runs too much, but this would be the guy that probably gets the workload when it comes to rushing. And Washington has been okay on offense. Gibson's been all right. McKissick's been pretty solid. So overall, I think this does have some value. Maybe not in a 10-team league, maybe not in a 12-team league, but Jaret Patterson is somebody that I think should at least be thought of
Bench.
as an ad, especially in a deeper league, just because I think there is value always in a starting running back in the NFL.
Yeah, and I like what you said there is like if Gibson does go down, they say he's going to try all season. There could hit a point where he's just done. It doesn't feel like McKissick's going to be that workhorse back. Um, so like you said, guy honestly barely played last week, but could definitely have some value like it's in those deeper leagues. And if Gibson officially like goes down and there's like, listen, we're just gonna rest him and call it a guy that you could realistically throw in your lineup. Um, he could be a nice handcuff guy if you are rolling with Gibson. That way because there could be a lot of weeks where Gibson's kind of a game time, where like maybe they're trying to decide. And it'd be nice to have that in your holster just in case.
Yeah, and McKissick this past week was out actually 8 carries on 45 yards. To actually got one more yard than Gibson, who had 10. So he did get a good amount of work rushing, more than usual. He also had 8 catches for 65 yards, the most yards. He had the most rushing yards and the most receiving yards. He also had the most snaps in the backfield as well. So McKissick, if Gibson is unable to play, or even if he's fighting, I think there's a really good shot that you're playing him kind of in a flex role anyway, depending on how deep your league
Yeah,
is. And if Gibson obviously doesn't play, then every league he should be started in every league. And in deeper
absolutely.
leagues, Jaret Patterson probably could maybe get some love as well, and as like a flex option or a very desperate running back too, if you're in that situation.
Yeah, absolutely. You good on that game?
Sure, I think so.
Okay. Next we got the Texans and the Colts. How'd that game go? That game go well for you?
Exactly how we thought it would.
Yeah.
Carson Wentz looking like one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. Though I will say, I know this isn't a Carson Wentz. We'll talk about maybe some streaming options. We'll talk maybe about him soon. But I've been impressed with him all season. I think he's been really solid. But yeah, T.Y. Hilton comes back. If you didn't know this, I'm saying this as a Texan fan too. He owns the Houston Texans. If he was gonna play, this could be his best game. Not like he was great or anything, but he's been battling. A lot of people told him he should just retire. He's had so many injuries.
Yeah.
But he owns the Houston Texans. He might just retire after this game. Be like, you know what? I'm going out. This is the way that I want to go out. No, he's probably not going to retire now. He'll wait till he probably can, put up another 150 yards and a few touchdowns against Texans again before he goes out. But yeah, T.Y. Hilton comes back. Probably not really playing.
Well, he's
him.
out. He's out again.
Oh yeah,
So
I forgot. He got it just keeps coming back. Somebody
quad
that
injury.
again, when I watch him, especially against the Texans, I always think, man, he looks good. Like every time
I have so many great memories of past years with Ty, like just going crazy.
But he had these injuries are just so tough. But I always think he looks good. But yeah, something that is just unfortunate. And then I think Paris Campbell suffered a foot injury. So one thing that I'm thinking here is Carson Wentz is looking pretty solid. I'm kind of liking this. I know Michael Pittman didn't have a great day. I feel like Michael Pittman is somebody that if you want to target, maybe it's on somebody's bench and they haven't been playing, maybe they're set at wide receiver. I actually feel like could have a really, really good last like 10 games here, 10, 11 games to end the season. What do you think about Michael Pittman?
I was actually, and this was one of the things we didn't talk about pre-show, but I was actually going to say it if you didn't. Like, I think he's going to have to throw it to somebody. There's not a whole lot. Like, I don't want to but Pascal and Campbell, like, you're not too concerned with them. Like, Pittman's had great weeks. He was number 14 in week 5, number 18 in week 2. He's also had some really bad weeks, but at a certain point, he's going to have to throw it to somebody. And Pittman's got the talent to get that done. And no, I don't think he's going to be a top 15. He's maybe sneaks his way into the top 20 for the rest of the season. But I think he could be a very good, and I don't think he has much trade value at all in most leagues right now. You could probably snag him pretty cheap.
Yeah, I mean he's been solid. But if you look at week 2 to week 5, so excluding this past week, Carson Wentz only threw the ball 20 times, so it was a complete blowout. Yeah. If you just take those weeks, he's actually been probably averaging it right around wide receiver 20 between those weeks. He only had 3 targets in this game. Again, only passed 20 times for Wentz though. He played 96%. Yeah, 96% of snaps. So he's the wide receiver who's on the field all the time. So Michael Pittman obviously is owned 100%. Should be owned 100% if he's not. Pick him up, but that would be ridiculous. Yeah. But Michael Pittman should be owned in every league, and I think, especially with bye weeks, which we haven't talked about that yet, but probably talk about that when we get through all the injuries. But with bye weeks coming up, all that, Michael Pittman's somebody who I think there's a good shot you're playing if he's on your bench. I know us personally, my wife and I were probably going to play him here in a week or two. So he's been sitting our bench because we're really good at wide receiver, but it's somebody that we're kind of excited to start him because he's been really solid. This past week wasn't his week, but I do think that's more just because of game flow. 20 pass attempts for 200 yards for Wentz. He was good, but he didn't have to do much more than that. So I think this is not an ordinary week for Pittman.
No, not at all. I think better things to come. Packers and Bears got out unscathed. Always like to see that. Of course, you knew the Ravens didn't get unscathed. They can't go a whole week.
I think I saw that they had like 16 players on IR or something, the most in the league. It's just crazy.
So just another running back. Murray, it looks like a sprain. They're kind of up in the air on when he's going to come back. Almost definitely going to miss next week, and they have a bye week. So
whenever ankles are involved, though, I always feel like if they don't get if they say it's a grade 1, but that's always something that makes me a little nervous. Obviously, your ankles are pretty important if you're running the ball, I think. Actually,
Mildly, yes.
a lot of things I feel like your ankles are important for most things you do in your life.
That's the hard hitting analysis you come here for. Ankles are important. Um, but honestly, this just kind of throws more wrenches in the already chaotic Baltimore running game. And a couple of names that you definitely know from the past look to maybe have some value here. Freeman and Bell both had okay days, especially for what you kind of expected from them. 22 and 35, respectively. And I don't know. Do you have a feeling either way on where you think they're going with this? Or are they going to just continue to kind of throw out whatever they have in?
Yeah, it's tough because Murray. It's like a complete split here with Murray, Bell, Freeman. Murray obviously going down, so I mean he was the
Yeah,
guy I guess that you would be most excited to start based on what we've seen. But which you should. I mean, if you were playing a running back, you would have been playing Latavius Murray. But
for sure.
it's I don't know with him going down. I felt like Freeman actually looks really good. I'm like, man, this guy looks pretty good when I was watching him. So I get he would be the guy that I would be
Yeah,
most excited to play. But if you look at the snap count, him and Bell are basically even. 21 snaps for Freeman, 22 for Bell. So we'll see if Murray, if he's out, which looks like he will be. We'll see how much that does shift in week 7. And if Freeman's the main guy, if Bell, I don't know, but based on how they looked, he did more with his work. 9 carries for 53 yards. Bell had 8 for 18. Lamar Jackson 8 carries. Tavius Murray had 9 carries. It's literally like every 4 guys had
every
8 or 9 carries,
yeah.
and 3 of them had touchdowns. Lamar was the only one that didn't get a touchdown. So yeah, I'm gonna go Freeman because I thought he looked better. But Le'Veon Bell, I mean, I honestly was one of those like if anybody adds him, Le'Veon Bell, it's just a complete waste of spot, and I think it was because you still wouldn't be starting him. It was a waste. But now, obviously, I'm and especially in deeper leagues, I
Deep
think
bench, deep
yeah.
league.
I think you could at least be interested. I still think he's probably the third guy there.
Yeah.
So, especially when Latavius comes down back. So, it's not somebody you'd be starting. You might have 1 week window in week 7, but if you're desperate. But outside of that, I'm going to go with Freeman just because I thought he looked better. But you're just rolling the dice. If you're with this team right now and you're trying to find a running back, you're rolling the dice and hoping you get you get lucky. And
You'll land on one.
you might because this offense is really good. But I mean, they destroyed these Chargers. I mean, it was a complete destruction, offense, defense. It was obliteration. So this may be the best team in all of football. So I guess with that said, with running, I want to say Lamar's a really good quarterback. Okay, I don't want to say he's a running like he's a good
He does
passer
run though.
and
Like
yeah.
he
So
runs a lot.
when you have a guy who does a lot of option type stuff, we said that we believe in the Baltimore whoever is the running back. Unfortunately,
We don't know who that is.
so I don't know, but
I think I agree with you though. Like I think if you're in this spot and you're like, I need a running back this week, I think you have to go with Freeman. He looked better. I think he's got more left in the tank. I just think he's going to be more involved in the passing game when he is on the field. Likely, I don't know. Just everything about him makes me more interested in Freeman, even though I'm only slightly interested in either one of them.
But
Pretty
you
much.
play the Cincinnati Bengals in week 7.
All right. Next one. Rams Giants. Toney aggravated his ankle injury that he didn't come back. He's probably out for a few weeks. We talked about him last week. We weren't really buying what was going on with him anyways. So if you picked him up, you probably just have to drop him now. Like he wasn't a big name anyways that you're that worried about.
Yeah, and he only had 3 targets this game. Sterling Shepard had 14. A name that is currently wide receiver 17 when he plays. So somebody who may be the benefactor. If this so like it's kind of like the Juju thing. If somebody goes down, if you could just clear the way a little bit with wide. There's so many. You got Galladay that missed this game, and now Toney going down. If you can just get some some clarity on wide receivers, Shepard might be somebody who you might be playing. He's been really solid when he has played. If you're getting 14 targets every game, which he's not going to get that, but if you're getting 10 targets plus every game, he's gonna be pretty valuable, especially in PPR. 10 for 76, no touchdowns, still with only 76 yards, yet he was wide receiver 17 because 10 catches. So still really solid. Pettis also had 11 targets. Daniel Jones threw it 51 times in this game. It wasn't close. It was a complete destruction. Daniel Jones was not good. The whole Giants team was outmatched by the Rams. But, if Daniel Jones is slinging it, then Shepard, maybe even Pettis in a deeper league just because 11 targets. You can't just ignore it when somebody gets targeted that much, even if he only got 5 for 48. He was clearly involved in the offense quite a bit.
It's so hard to tell because we just haven't had a week where everybody was healthy with them. It's been such a this guy's out and then these 2 guys are out and then 3 guys. It's just
the only reason Dante Pettis is kind of interesting to me is because this is his first game on the team all year, and he had 11 targets. So,
yeah,
I mean, maybe they really like him and they want him to be involved in the offense. We only have a 1-game sample. He was on the field second most, only behind Sterling Shepard at wide receiver. So, and like I say, 11 targets. So, nothing to sneeze at.
No, not at all. Next up, we have the Panthers. They had a couple of guys go down with concussions. Those are just one of those things you don't know if they're going to play next week or not. We have no idea. You hope that they'll go through protocol, and I feel like more often than not they clear protocol in a week, but you just don't know. It was Eckerson and Marshall, so probably honestly still not guys you were. I feel like they're still not guys you were really going crazy for, anyways. You might have been in a pinch, but I'm not.
Yeah, and
I'm not too worried about it.
Again, maybe just DJ Moore. It wasn't as bad. He's 5 for 73. I mean, it's still not bad. He's really good. Darnold he was 17 of 41. It doesn't look good. He'd also had 48 yards rushing though, so he kind of saved his. That's the thing with Darnold. He has been sort of a run, a dual threat a little bit. So he was still quarterback 15, even though he was terrible. So from 17 for 41 is not a good day for a quarterback, but yeah, DJ Moore, I guess maybe I don't think you can really clear the way anymore. He's very Robby Anderson though. I will say this: I've been super low on Robby Anderson, and I think you could have dropped him. With bye weeks, somebody that is seeing pretty much every snap he's on the field had 11 targets, only 3 catches. So I gotta say, you get 11 targets. I think Sam Darnold has been really solid. And I know this wasn't his best day the last couple of weeks, not his best, but I think, again, another guy who is involved in the offense, even though he's not doing anything with it. I wouldn't be surprised if he has a big game in this upcoming week or a couple weeks, just because, again, he's getting so much targets. I think he's a talented player. He's just not working right now in Carolina or this year. So I think, again, somebody that could be dropped. Good chance he is, because I would have dropped him too. Maybe somebody that you could pick up and ride with a week. It's definitely risky because he hasn't really shown anything. But again, if you're getting 11 targets, he got a touchdown in this game, only 11 yards, but yeah, touchdown, which kind of, I would say, saved his fantasy day, but it wasn't still good, and you weren't starting him anyway.
No. Now we get to the biggest name of the week by far that went down. Kareem Hunt went down, calf strain. They're gonna do an MRI. I haven't heard anything on the MRI yet as of right now, but it feels like he's probably headed to the IR. Be out for a few weeks.
I think he is on IR now.
Did they officially do that?
So.
I may have just missed it. So, yeah, it's unfortunate because we've talked about this running back tandem. How many times have we talked about them? At least once a week, sometimes twice. We've been so impressed with what they've been doing, and it's just this is one of those where you're like a guy who was expected to be good this year, but not nearly what he's been, and you hate to see it kind of go down like this.
Yeah, hopefully. Hopefully he does. Hopefully it's it says timeline 4 to 6 weeks. Hopefully he's able to recover well and be back for a playoff run, because this team is super talented. I know they have aspirations for beyond just making the playoffs, though they're going to have to fight. They got a lot of injuries with Baker and Kareem now. I mean, they got their fair share of injuries as well, just like Baltimore. So not quite maybe to that extreme, but you're losing. Kareem Hunt is also, he's been a top 10 fantasy back. So Baker Mayfield's your starting quarterback. So I would argue they probably have worse injuries than pretty much every team when it's those type of players. So it does kind of beg the question who will fill in for these guys. So there's two guys. We've seen a little bit of Demetric Felton. I remember him against Houston. He had a crazy beautiful play, and I was like, holy crap, this guy's impressive. But he was too flood. You know, you had Hunt and you had Chubb, so you never see the field. They was basically in a 50-50. He is the receiving guy, though. He's exclusively basically in the receiving game. So D'Ernest Johnson, especially if Chubb doesn't go, but even if Chubb does go, he has been like a 50-50 split with Hunt. I don't know if they're really going to put Chubb in there 70% of the time. I mean, it's been working. If they feel like D'Ernest Johnson can be at least somewhat, I know he's not going to be Kareem Hunt, but they might kind of like the fact of having Chubb. Chubb's been really good, even with only being on the field half the time. Him and Hunt have been incredible. So if you get if they kind of ride that, D'Ernest Johnson, I think, is an ad in a lot of leagues. And Felton will see one of those that I think is super risky because he's really just a passing game guy. Maybe that changes now, but he's just never been used as a rushing back. So I think D'Ernest Johnson is probably a better ad. But Demetric Felton looks super explosive and a fun player. I mean, if you just want to try and just roll the dice, especially maybe a standard league, and maybe he can break off a long touchdown or something, that might be interesting. But in a normal league, I think D'Ernest Johnson is probably the ad.
Yeah, and I like you said, I don't think Johnson's going to get a 50-50 split, but I could easily see this being a like Chubb is 65 to 70, somewhere in that range. And if you get, let's say it's 65, you get 35% of the touches in that offense at running back. That's at least a flex consideration. On just that line's great. They've been running the ball so well. And yeah, especially coming off injury, I just don't see them going, hey, Chubb, guess what? Now you have 85% of the snaps. Like, I just don't see that happening.
Yeah, and this is probably a small window. I'm sure they're going to give Hunt, assuming they're probably going to give him as long as he needs. So this could be something. I know it's a minimum of 3 weeks. He might very well miss almost 2 months. So this could be something that could help you get into the playoffs. If you pick right, there's two guys. I just think, the upside of Johnson is way higher than Felton. Though Felton, it's kind of like when you see Pollard and Zeke, and every time you see Pollard run, you're like, man, but he just does. It's just Zeke does everything. He's an all-purpose back, and so when you're on the field way more and you can pass block and all these things, I haven't investigated who's the better pass blocker and all this stuff, and who's going to see the field more. But it seems like D'Ernest Johnson would be the guy that would fill in more likely than not.
Yeah,
and also Odell left the game, came back. Odell actually looks pretty good in this game. I was really impressed. I've not been high on him at all, but I'm not high on the passing game of Cleveland. They just run so well. It's like, why even pass? But yeah, but Baker actually looks pretty good. Was targeted a lot. Yeah. Looked good. I thought,
and they have kind of said he's got that shoulder issue, and he's gonna try to tough it out for the rest of the season. But like, you don't know how that's gonna end up. You hope he can just get through the season and have surgery, but like you said, we haven't been high on their passing game all year anyway, so I doubt you're doing much with anybody in that. Raiders Broncos got out clean, like to see it. Cowboys, the Dak Prescott strained his calf on the game winning TD pass, like right at the end. So it they said it's a grade 1, so that's like a 1 to 3 week thing. He doesn't play next week. I have a feeling they're just going to throw him out there. Yeah, that kind of seems what people are saying, but I also, just from a feeling point, even if he's at 80%, he's playing.
Yeah, probably, unless, it depends on where the injury is, but a calf, I think that's not something, not saying, if I listed off the body parts that are important for a quarterback, I'm not saying all of them are pretty important.
It sounds like you said he could just chop his leg off and he'd be fine.
But
that's what I heard.
Some are more important than others. I think everything in your throwing arm, that would be really important.
I'll say mainly the arm.
That would be important. Your eye, that could be important too, your vision. But there's some stuff, that may not be as important. I think the cap, I think he can play with it even if it's not 100%. He should be back no worries there.
Yeah.
And then I guess I'll just anything else with Dallas.
Yeah. I got nothing.
Seattle, Pittsburgh. Alex Collins did go ahead and was hip and glute injury. But he looked really good in this game. If he comes back, if he's ready to go, I think this is not a non-starter. But if he does, whatever reason, miss a week or whatever, Rashad Penny would be the guy who's in line. So if you're looking for somebody, a speculation ad in case Alex Collins can't go, or just to pick up for a handcuff, or if anything happens before Chris Carson comes back, Rashad Penny would be the guy you would want to pick up.
Yep. All right. So that is injuries. That felt so much nicer than last week. We started this on we started doing injuries on a bad week. Last week was so rough, and this one was for the most part. I mean, I get it. If you're a Hunt owner, you're not happy, but other than that, we got off pretty good this week. So we've touched on a couple of waiver wire pickups. Do you have any other waiver guys, or do we want to dip into streaming options? We think might
Yeah,
work
I mean
out this
these
week.
will probably kind of go kind of with that all kind of in one,
Yeah.
but we'll look at that. Before we do that, we have 6 teams on bye. The Buffalo Bills, the Dallas Cowboys, Jacksonville Jaguars, the Los Angeles Chargers, Minnesota Vikings, and the Pittsburgh Steelers. So obviously, every team pretty much has some fantasy value, even Jacksonville with James Robinson. So there's going to be some value you're losing if you have any of these 6 teams. There's a good chance you do. So let's look at quarterbacks. So if you have Josh Allen, Dak Prescott, Justin Herbert, Kirk Cousins, probably not if you have Trevor Lawrence or Ben Roethlisberger. Probably weren't starting those. Lawrence maybe in a deeper league. But if you have one of those guys, anybody, especially, say that the top guys are all owned, anybody that looks you see on there that might not be owned too highly.
So, and this might be a guy. There's one. I think there's a clear cut number one choice this week. In Trey Lance, he is owned. I think we looked up. It was 30%. He's
Somewhere around
owned.
there, yeah.
Yeah. There's a decent chance he's owned in your league, but there's also a reasonable chance he's not. He's playing the Colts this week, and while a certain team had a little bit of an issue with him this week, in general, people don't have too much of an issue with the Colts. So I love this week. If you're streaming, you have one of those guys. I love Trey Lance, and I think he's the absolute number one choice this week.
Yeah, I mean, I am going to be starting Trey Lance in a league, so I'm excited to have him back. I think he had like 15 points last week before the bye, and a lot of that was in rushing. I think he had close to 90 yards rushing, 90. So yeah, I'm a big Trey Lance fan. If he gets the nod, if he's starting over Garoppolo, yeah, I'm a fan. So he's definitely somebody I would look at for if he's not owned. If you're looking for a pickup, I think there's a good chance he is owned though. So somebody that maybe is probably not owned actually, Tua. I don't know how much you watched of that game, but it was, it's always nice to get a little bit of football, but in the morning. Dolphins and the Jags. And I thought he looked really good. I thought when I was watching him,
Nice week.
I'm like, he did have one bad interception, but I thought he actually looked pretty solid. And he's going against the Atlanta Falcons, which is not the best defense in the world. So I think as again, an ad that probably only going to be this week. They played Buffalo the following week, so you're not going to start him against Buffalo. You probably just drop him after this week. Though he does play the Texans after that, so that could be interesting. But yeah. If you say you have somebody like Josh Allen, you're going to drop him right after this week. But yeah, against Atlanta, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he gets. I think he had 300 yards, couple touchdowns, a little bit of rushing as well. So he had a really nice week. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if he has another really solid week against Atlanta.
Yeah, I actually like the other side of that ball too. I think this could turn out to be a game where both sides of the ball have a streaming option at quarterback. I don't like Matt Ryan on the season at all, but I think in this game it's a decent matchup. He's got weapons around him, and when you're in this spot and you're just kind of looking for a guy for a week, he's a guy, and he is not he's not been as bad as I think people think he has. In week 4 and 5, he was number 3 and number 9. He's looked pretty. He's kind of on the upswing from where he started the season. So I think Matt Ryan could be a solid stream option as well if you have one of those
And
guys.
that's an offense that it looks like it's going in the right direction. So they seem like
Jaret Patterson, baby.
they figured some stuff out. It's an offense going in the right direction. So yeah, Matt Ryan, if he's not owned, could be also a pretty good ad here going against Miami. A couple names. Justin Fields. I know he hasn't looked great, but he's going against Tampa Bay, which has not been good for against the pass. They have a great running defense. I will say, I don't think Justin Fields right now at this current state with the offense is going to be able to take advantage of that pass defense. So I don't love it this week, but he could be a deeper league ad. Is a good chance. He's a long-term play. Honestly, you're still kind of hoping, in a few weeks he turns out to be a really good fantasy quarterback. And then also, did we talk about Carson Wentz? Carson Wentz. I feel we talked about him earlier. I feel like I've said this already when we talked about the Colts wide receivers. Yeah, I know I talked about him. Carson Wentz, I feel like has looked really solid, a solid quarterback. And they do play the 49ers this week, but after that, so again, this is maybe a deeper league. Maybe somebody who depends on what your quarterback situation is. They play the Titans, the Jets, and then the Jags. So they have a super juicy schedule after the 49ers. So maybe somebody you don't start this week, but somebody we probably talk about in the future weeks, just to keep an eye on, depending on who you have on bye. You might end up starting him, and then we'll see. Probably won't have a great week against the 49ers. You never know. Football's a weird game, but somebody to look out for, especially with good matchups coming up.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Running backs and wide receivers, that's not really a streaming position. We've talked about the waivers. That's more of a long-term play. But tight ends could be a guy where you...
Can I just mention real quick at running back?
Yeah.
Rhamondre Stevenson, we've already talked about. Did get a little bit of a run here. I think he converted on a touchdown as well. I don't have his numbers here. I think he had like 8 carries. Patriots, here it is. He had 5 carries, 5 for 23 and a touchdown. So somebody, again, I think should be owned in a lot of leagues. If you have a spot available with James White on IR, somebody that's interesting. He also had 3 carries as well. So Rhamondre Stevenson, we've talked about before, but if he's available, if you need some depth at running back or maybe somebody you might be forced to start, we see him get a third of the snaps this past week, with Jacob Johnson taking a good amount, but he's not involved at all. He's technically listed at a running back, but he's like exclusively not. He doesn't run the ball. So, so Rhamondre Stevenson, he's a guy that we haven't talked about yet. We've talked about the running backs in Baltimore, talked about Jaret Patterson in Washington. We talked about the Brown situation, but that's somebody that's not really injury, but unless we talk about James White, who's already been on IR, but somebody who could be an interesting option.
Yeah.
And Chris Evans in Cincinnati, if Joe Mixon can't go, he looks like he would be the guy who would be the starter. So Chris Evans, if you see that Mixon is banged up. But he looked great. Mixon looked great this week. So
yeah, I'm not super worried about it. I know moving into tight end, I know there's a guy we have touched on, but you want to definitely talk about this week for either a streaming option or a going forward option.
Yeah, we talked about this last week. I think is even the title of a video or two. But Ricky Seals-Jones, hopefully you guys listened. 99% of snaps last week in week 5. I said this Logan Thomas, he was good when he was in there. He was placed on IR. As long as Logan Thomas is not in, Ricky Seals-Jones is a top 10 tight end in this offense. Book it. He had 6 targets, 4 for 58, a touchdown. I know a lot of that was on a 39-yard, just wide open, basically, touchdown. But Ricky Seals-Jones played 100% of snaps. That is good. That means he's on the field every snap. You remember when you said you had James Robinson as like running back 7 and you couldn't be higher, even though there's a bunch of numbers.
I also feel like you know exactly what I meant.
Ricky Seals-Jones, you could not be higher than 100%. Literally, he is on the field every single snap. So you like that. Heineke, I think he has a solid. He didn't have a great day. All right, and you were expecting more against Kansas City, 100%. But nobody had a good day besides McKissick in this offense. I don't think that will continue. And Ricky Seals-Jones had a good day. I shouldn't say that, but he had that touchdown, which really helped. He was the only receiving touchdown. So I'm just saying, 100% of snaps. I love me some Ricky Seals-Jones. I'm rocking Ricky Seals-Jones, and you should as well.
Absolutely. Um, One guy that I think could be a streaming option if you're in one of those leagues, because I've been in these where you're the only one who rocks one tight end all year, and like you're in a real pinch come bye week. I think TJ Uzoma. I don't even have any clue if I pronounced that correctly, but he is. He played very well in week 4. He was number 1 tight end, and then week 6, like last week, he was 14. That he's getting way more looks than I think anybody expected from him. And he's a guy. If you're in a league where every other team is holding a backup tight end and you're not, he might be your best option this week. Um, and he's just a guy that I don't think comes across really anybody's radar, but has sneakily put up a solid couple games.
Yeah, he wasn't on the field as much this past week, percentage-wise, but again, he got in the end zone, which saved his day because he didn't really do much with his 3 targets, but besides the touchdown. But yeah, I mean, the Bengals offense we've talked about before. If the offensive line holds up, Mixon was the recipient of the offense this game. I mean, he was incredible. Also, I can't, every time I can talk about Ja'Marr Chase, him blocking for that touchdown on that reception by Joe Mixon.
Are you going to try to take Ja'Marr Chase for me? You're going to try to now claim Ja'Marr Chase?
Yeah, I mean, Ja'Marr Chase helped Mixon there, really downfield. Oh, yeah. You love to see that. I mean, that will get the trust of the running backs, the whole team. If you see wide receivers helping you. So just another instance of Ja'Marr Chase being incredible. So I think they said that he had. I know we could talk about this when we talk about the Bengals, but I still thought it was interesting. He has the second most receiving yards in the first 6 games to start a career. I think Randy Moss is maybe one. I'm not sure on that one, but if it is Randy Moss, that's a pretty good company to have. He was good, perhaps the greatest wide receiver of all time. So I don't want to make too much of a stance. People fight back on Jerry Rice and stuff, but I think Randy Moss was the greatest of all time.
I can say confidently he was the most athletically gifted wide receiver of all time.
The only argument is just some of the maybe not even off field stuff, but maybe there was some seasons that just there was some weird stuff that happened. But when he was on, he was on. So being in that company, I think that's who he was behind. Justin Jefferson, they were showing his first. He was below, but he was kind of close to Chase as well last season. So pretty good company to have for Chase. So this offense with Chase doing his thing, making big plays, why not? A tight end. Like, I feel good about this offense. Like, why can't they? If you have a tight end option, a team that's going to put up points, we believe. Burrow continues to look solid.
Like I said, he's not a guy I want in there every week. But if I'm rocking Knox every week or something like that, and I just need to plug somebody in for a week, I'm solid with
it. Speaking of Knox, Mo Alley-Cox for the Colts, somebody to just again when bye weeks hits, he's somebody who's been decently solid, get a touchdown for you. Good as chance as anybody else you can have the waiver wire. Jared Cook, if he's not owned, even though the Chargers didn't play well this past week, could be somebody. If he's not owned, he should be one of the better tight end options. I would put him below Ricky Seals-Jones though. Ricky Seals-Jones, I think, is the very best streaming tight end. Actually, the very best streaming option you can find on the waiver wire, I think. Overall, based on the competition, like who else you can find, I think he's the very best. But OJ Howard as well had a really nice day for the Bucks, which was nice to see because we always talk about him the past few years about how he has so much talent. It's nice. Sometimes you just see these OJ Howard sightings where you're like, man, that looks pretty good.
There's always a couple of
years. He goes back into obscurity, but he had a nice day. So a lot of people were high on Cameron Brate with Gronk out. It looks like OJ Howard was the recipient of Gronk missing some time.
Yep, absolutely. All right. Do you have anything else for the people?
I feel like I talk so much, so I hope I gave it all I had. All right, I tried my best.
Yeah. So hopefully there was something in there that helped you.
I'm like Michael Jordan in the flu game or hangover game, whatever it might be.
All right. Well, we appreciate you guys coming this far. If you did, hit the like button, subscribe if you're not. Putting out 5 videos a week. Tomorrow we'll have our long covering every game for week 7. and then the other 3 days, I'll be honest with you, we're not 100% sure, but there will be videos on Thursday, Friday, Saturday. A little bit shorter ones, but tomorrow's the big one. And leave a comment if there's anything you want us to chat about, and we appreciate you coming by.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, Tuesdays to Saturdays, video every day. Tuesdays are definitely waiver wire and injuries. Wednesdays are the longer going through all the episodes, and then who knows? Just subscribe for the fun, just for the ride, because we don't know what's going to happen. Thursday through Saturday, it's going to be a dice roll. We'll see what happens. But thank you so much. Subscribe, like, comment, all that stuff really does help us out. And we'll see you tomorrow for the longer episode. See ya.
See ya.